Welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, where we let the inner warrior shine in their light. Today, I have a returning guest, Kelli Lumsden. She is a realtor, mother. She's a veteran, and she also works with other veterans to help uh, get them on their journey to where they need to be as well. She is an amazing soul. Last we left Kelli. First off, thank you for coming back. I appreciate the follow up. I was telling you off camera, the difference in your eyes and your face and your smile from the first time to this time is very noticeable, and I love that because when we last left you, you were talking about your arc from the darkness you had encompassed
Mm.
throughout your life to just on the fringe of your change to being a public speaker, helping more women. And now, as I've watched over this past year, I've seen you on stage a few times. You're actually serving others. You're doing a Save a Warrior, thing. So kudos to all of that progress, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's been, how many months has it been since?
Well, last time I interviewed you, it was in July, and
Okay.
we aired it in November.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
Okay.
so it's
Wow.
been
Almost a
10
year.
months. Yeah,
Yeah,
almost a year.
10 months. Wow.
Yeah. It's a fast change, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Night and day.
So when you started to step into your own passion and your own truth and
Mm.
recapture who Kelli is, what was the spark that really propelled you in that direction? Because I know some of the things you shared on first time were some of the first times you had actually even talked about them.
Yeah.
And so now being on stage, obviously you share more of your story. What
Hmm.
was the catalyst to just dive in and do it?
It was do or die. It was do or die. Um, I knew that if I started to be vulnerable and to really speak about my trauma and the truth about who I am and not, and well, not who I am, but the difference between my story and what happened to me, and I started to speak about it, it that offered healing to me. So keeping it in, keeping all my trauma in and trying to process everything myself, I was absolutely on a decline. I mean, I hit rock bottom. So
So it takes a certain amount of courage to step into our story and to no longer be victim of it.
right.
This past year, I went on my own healing alchemist journey and shared it on my podcast several months ago. But I know just from like being in front of the camera and being in front of the microphone and being in front of others, that's vastly different than sharing not only your story, but overcoming your story. There's a
Right.
difference between sharing it and overcoming it.
100%.
You're stepping into the overcoming part. So,
Yes.
what's been a helpful tool or organization or person, or was it all just you and God and working through it?
No, not at all. Well, yes, I give all the glory to God, 100%. But he was putting people in front of me in my path that became the catalyst to my ending up going to Save a Warrior, which I would love to talk about. Um, so yeah, um, I went to a speaking engagement that my girlfriend had, and a woman was there named Jackie Briggs that founded and runs an organization called Courageous Survival. And it is for first responders and veterans uh, in crisis. And so we are first to respond. The team, we're trained in a peer support capacity, trauma response, and we show up when there's crisis and when there's incidences and what have you. And she then was sharing with me about Save a Warrior, and I applied to go to Save a Warrior. I want to say maybe 5 months ago. So I was waiting a while. And in that time, I had moved into a new place. And, even though you move, your stuff goes with you.
Right. Yes.
It doesn't matter. I'm like, oh, maybe a new apartment will be great. And
Yeah.
then everything will be, no, not the case.
Yeah. I spent decades running from myself without realizing it, just taking it from
Yes.
one city to another, to another, to another.
Yes.
So yeah, at some point you got to stop and go, oh wait, the common denominator is me,
Yeah.
and
I was hoping to have a seat at Save a Warrior in January because they thought that there would be space for me, but there wasn't. And so I went in March. And so very recently, almost a month ago, well, no, just over a month ago. And that was the vision that I had, was the bags, the baggage, right? And I took this suitcase with me and I said, I am not bringing this suitcase home. It was absolutely a do or die for me. I was at the rock bottom.
so explain to the audience and those who aren't familiar, what is Save a Warrior, and what was it that you actually were going to do?
So Save a Warrior is the nation's #1 suicide prevention and transformational experience program for first responders and veterans. I think 80% that attend, that get a seat at Save a Warrior, are veterans, and 20% are first responders. And for me, I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, there was a very significant correlation of my childhood trauma that really, now looking back, I see why I went into the military, because I wanted to be a hero and I wanted to rescue people, and I was completely avoiding, and I was trying to protect the little girl that's right there.
Yeah.
um without even knowing it. And so it's a 76-hour intensive, and it is very raw, very real, and very, very, very painful. So it was
But very
amazing.
worth it in the end, because you get to connect with that person you're trying to save, which is you, and you get to bring it forth in a more healed fashion.
I had no idea. I kind of had this, well, I did have an aha moment that I was going back for the little Kelli. That's kind of been a thing for me throughout the years. It's like, what about the little inner child and all that stuff? And I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
you know. So, but when I had that aha moment that this whole time, and it's not, no shame or anything, I've been hurting her,
Hmm.
and she was hurting. And so
Right.
when I flipped the perspective, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to protect her and go back and heal her, it changed everything for me. So.
Yeah. One of the things that I coach a lot of my clients are trying to step back into their own purpose and their passion. They're trying to figure out what that means, but they don't realize that they have to go back and heal, help that little person that is hurt and wounded inside them in order to be propelled into the purpose that is before them. So
Mm-hmm,
we do a lot of work where they go back and they do exactly what you did. You have to first acknowledge that you're hurt, and
mm-hmm.
and that then you have to let the little you know that the big you is there now to protect them,
Right,
and they don't have to stay hurt.
right.
You do the work to move forward. So I think it's especially, my daughter's was in the military. I know a lot of military folks.
Mm-hmm,
I see what the military does to an already damaged soul.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't. It's not, your platoon isn't the area where you're going to heal. you know.
Right. Yeah.
So it's nice that these organizations afterwards are there to help reconnect and reintegrate. Um, what
Yeah.
was the in that 72-hour intensive? What was the moment that you discovered within yourself? Oh crap, it's me, and I got to save me.
Well, um, it was actually it was actually kind of something else that had happened, to be honest.
Okay.
And The Red Xer was Brad Gallup. He is an amazing, amazing human being. He was taking us through this process, and there was a big dry erase board behind us, and it had, red writing and black writing, and it had a diagram on it. It was just explaining this process of the drift that we go through, and the shame and the guilt, and then how it all just spirals, right? And he was standing there, and he just said to everyone, he said there was 18 of us that got to sit in the seats, 18 women. And he said, look at the board and what do you see? And, we're all just really looking at the board, and we're like, okay, well, we see these words, and we see this process, and we see the black and the red. And he said, no, look at the board and what do you see? And all of a sudden I was like, the board. I see the board. Because we were just we're trying to, control everything and have all the right answers and everything. And we missed all of it. And it was like, no, just look at the board. And what do you see? That's all he was asking, right?
Right.
It's so
We
simple.
Well, we do try to overcomplicate
Yes.
all of it. It's that's why sometimes when we go back to the child, sometimes the simplest answers are in the children because they don't overcomplicate it, right?
Yes.
And so
Exactly.
if we go back and we listen to our inner child and
Right.
reconnect with that, sometimes we can slow it down to where it's not as complex as the adult us is trying to make it.
Right.
But
Exactly. And then it was also just kind of giving myself grace that I didn't know what I didn't know. And then I had it just clicked, and I was like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden I just woke up and I said, oh, I've been literally this little girl this whole time trying to be, a mom and a wife, and literally coming from the perspective of trying to raise these 3 daughters that I have as a child. I was literally a child. Not saying that I was immature, right?
right.
I had wisdom and knowledge and I was growing, but my inner soul was just still so young and broken and sad, and and oh, it was very, very profound.
So when you come out of that experience, what are you doing to continue that journey of repair? Because it is a process. We heal the child, then we heal the teenager, then we heal the adult. Like it's still in a process, right? Because all phases of you from that broken point or trauma point, because I don't know that we're broken as we are traumatized, but
Right.
um, every phase of your growth from that point on is led by the trauma. So you have to repair each phase of that. So what was your profound tools or methods for getting to where you are today?
It starts immediately. I'll have to say I had to recuperate. Literally, I had to integrate back in very, very, very slowly. I don't think I saw anyone. Maybe I saw 2 people, maybe in the first week. I couldn't even, and it's not in a bad way, but my mind was so clear because I was operating off of the old stories,
Mhm.
and those were left and let go and burned, and literally I didn't come back with that suitcase. It was like, well, wait a minute, what now?
Yeah,
Where do I go from here? And we have this amazing book that we
yeah.
go through, and we have calls there's availability to calls every day if we wanted.
Mhm.
But it was having the courage to reach out and really tell people when I'm struggling and when I'm stuck, because I would call my shepherd, and I have a traveler now that travels with me, and we have a group call this evening, and we have a group text, and um but I kept feeling like I was empty, and I said, I feel so empty now. And he said, no, you're open.
Right.
And I was like, oh.
Right.
I was like, oh, right. Okay. I can actually do whatever I want. And I can now fill that space with whatever I want. And I'm telling you, Daryl, it's been tough. It makes me emotional because uh my friend groups have changed. I have to choose. You have to choose your family.
Mhm.
You have to choose who sorry. It gets me.
No, please.
Yeah,
It's your journey. So I'll give you a moment here and I'll fill in with you. Again, a lot of what you did is a lot of what I coach on. So I totally understand what your process has been and what you're going through. Um, and I've said this to, my wife because of her trauma and where she's going. Um, you 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 sometimes I hear they long for who they used to be.
Mm,
And that's only because you carried that person with you for so long. That's
yeah.
been your identity. So now you, as you just said, you get to choose who you want to be
Mhm,
instead of who you were told to be, all those years in the trauma. And
mhm,
that to some at the first, because if you were in the military, you understand, when you're in boot camp and you're carrying a 50-pound pack and you go for a 5-mile run, after you've done that for months and then you go on a 5-mile run without the pack, it feels so much different and it feels so much quicker and so much lighter. And
yeah.
that's where you are when you let go of that baggage you talk about, right?
Mhm,
You're now open, but we can't stay in the same circles that we were in when we were trauma bonded. We have to choose new because they won't understand us anymore and we won't understand them anymore.
right.
And so unless they're willing to accept the new version of you, you know, I told my wife this too. The butterfly doesn't look back at the caterpillar and go, "Gee, I wish I was a caterpillar again." The caterpillar looks at the butterfly and goes, "Gee, I hope I get to be a butterfly someday."
Right.
And if you're still hanging out with caterpillar people, they're not going to understand you're a butterfly now.
Right.
And so you do have to choose, and sometimes it is family and those that we're
Yeah.
closest to, friends.
And they don't.
But sorry. But what happens is what you said. The universe puts people and things in your place to help replace those because now they're what you need instead of what you were with before. Do you
Right.
find that to be true?
Oh, 100%. I had an unfortunate falling out with a girlfriend of mine I was friends with her for, well, gosh, 4.5 years while I lived here. And we had this falling out, and it's just, I think when they see you growing and having the courage to walk in a different direction, and it really makes them look at themselves, unfortunately. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them at all. It's just now you get to this, when you have this awakening, you can hear, I mean, literally, like, I can hear the clatter, and it's almost unbearable.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, you're beyond it.
what's that?
You're beyond it. So it's no
Yeah.
longer comfortable because
No.
it's like a something trying to suck you back down into what you were, and you
Yes.
fought so hard to be where you are. You want to avoid
And
that.
I can't, and it's not my responsibility to try to explain it to them or say, well, this is what I went through. And what I really, honestly, what I really do want is, I really want them to have the same awakening and the same
Yeah.
freedom, but I can't.
Well,
They have to have it themselves.
but that's one of the things that causes these separations is
Mhm.
because when we have experienced freedom, we want others because now we can see clearer with better vision. We
Right.
want we want them to because we love them and care for them. We want them to experience freedom as well.
Mhm.
But you know, I one of my coaches said, you know, to a group of us, you want to change the world, but if what if the world doesn't want to be changed by you?
Mm.
So you have to find your people that want to hear your message or are aligned with your message, and that causes the division you were talking about, right?
Mhm.
We're not responsible for fixing the world around us. We're responsible for fixing us, and then our light shines to those who are gravitating towards it.
Yes. Have you heard of, and actually I'll show you. This is did you see my post about that the other day?
No, I missed that.
So have you heard of the ACEs score?
No.
So I can't remember the acronym for it, but it's a very quick 1 to 10 questionnaire that you can answer. It's ACES. You can look it up. I can send it to you too. And it gives you 10 questions, and if you, depending on how many questions you answer, that is your score. And the average score, or the score that, if you get a 3, you are more apt to have very toxic relationships, and very, very toxic, just throughout your life. My score is an 8 out of 10. That's the significance of the trauma that I received, or that I went through from 0 to 18 years old.
Yeah.
This is like felony. This is like addict. This is like criminal. This is, I mean, it's,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at this and remind myself that I'm a miracle.
You are.
I'm a miracle. And because where I had the strength, or how I had the strength, I mean, God only knew that I was going to be where I am. I mean, he knew that I was going to carry all of this, let it go, but then be able to turn around and help other people. But this gives me compassion for other people,
Yeah.
that I don't know what their score is, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem. We all tend to, for the first part of our journey, and some heal quicker than others, so the timeline isn't, linear for everybody. But
Right.
until we've healed ourselves, we wear a mask that we only show the world.
Yep.
And behind that mask is a lot of tears, sadness, a lot of anger, and a lot of fake us being who we think the world needs us to be, instead of showing up authentically. Yeah, that
Yeah.
authentically. There we go.
Yeah.
And when you find that your number, like if we asked you on a scale from 1 to 10, how toxic are you, or are your traits? I doubt very seriously you would have said, I feel like I'm an 8. We tend to ignore how our traits really are until they're put in front of us in a fashion that we can see and understand. So
Exactly.
just the fact that you have an 8 sitting in your hand had to have been hugely, A, alarming, and B, eye-opening,
Mm-hmm.
and show you other areas that you still need to touch to heal, right?
And when I originally took the test, I did it before I went to Save a Warrior, and I was a 7. And our scores across the board, we went up. Everybody, almost everybody went up. And I went up. And because stuff had then start to come back to me, that because I didn't remember anything before my 4th grade.
Right.
And I didn't remember when I had to put that little girl in the closet and protect her. And then, then the serious trauma started happening. And um yeah, it's changed my perspective on how I look at people, and the grace, but I have to continue to have grace for myself. And the thing I'm going through right now is just trying to really be clear on when I am being toxic and when I'm not. So when you were talking about wearing the mask and being authentic and what have you, I wouldn't say I was ever fake. Okay, so I was always very loving, and I'm always been very friendly, and I love people, and I want to help, and I want to serve. I just wouldn't show them the pain that I was in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that the love that I did show was authentic, but yeah.
Well, we can still show portion of who we are, but we hide the true rest of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
There,
because if you
there.
saw it, you wouldn't like me.
Yeah,
If you
right.
saw it, you wouldn't stay. If you saw
Yeah,
it, you would abandon me. If you saw it, that was
yeah,
my story.
yeah. And we don't. I mean, we don't we don't like it ourselves that we have it, so we bury it from ourselves, and then we hide it from the rest of the world because,
Mhm.
like you just said, we have this thought that if we're authentic, if we're true to all parts of ourselves, then people will, leave us. Well, what you're finding as you're healing is that you're leaving them and they're leaving you, but you're doing it now from a healed mind
Yeah.
instead of a fearful, that it's going to happen mind.
Yeah.
You know,
And what's
it,
interesting is that the new people that God's brought into my life, I've actually introduced them to the scores and to this score, and they're all like in the ones.
nice.
So I'm being brought these really healthy, great people that are modeling to me, just great, just true friends and just healthy
Well,
people.
that's what it's going to model for you is what authentic friendship is, what
Yeah.
genuine friendship is, what an authentic, healthy relationship is.
Mhm.
Like you were married for a good period of time,
Yeah.
and
Half my
but
life.
and I don't know your relationships after your marriage, but if you've bounced in and out, again, the common denominator sometimes is us. We have to be honest to say, yeah, they brought their part, but man, I really brought my part too.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. I'm going to leave you first before you leave me, and you're not going to hurt me, and I'm going to make this decision, and I'm in control. And how was that going for me? It was horrible.
right, yeah.
It was
And
horrible.
so you now that you actually like
Uh-huh.
you can enter into new relationships, whether they be partnerships or friendships,
Yeah.
or even relationships with your children or your family from that healthier side. And it is a lighter connection. It is a not as burdensome to be with
Right.
those people, but it's
Right.
also inspiring and uplifting because now your conversations get to be deeper. Have you
Mhm.
noticed with your new friends how much deeper your conversations are from your old friends?
Oh my gosh. And they're safe. They're
Yeah.
just safe. They sit and they listen. I went through this it's called ETIP, and it's a trauma response class, a certification. I just went through this last week. And their slogan is show up, shut up, and listen. That's what it is. And that's what my friends do. They just sit with me. And then they're like, I love you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you too.
But they sit with you and they don't judge you. They don't
No,
judge your past. They don't judge your future. They don't judge your present. They accept you
yeah.
absolutely from where you are, and they are willing to grow with you in that journey and accept
Oh
you
yeah.
from where you came from.
Yeah. And they're ones. And they and they have the compassion and the empathy to just to be with me. And they said, we're going to show up for you. We're going to show up for you. And I'm like, people do that?
Yeah.
I
Was
always love.
that hard for you to accept?
Very, very, yes.
Did you sort of still try to push it away a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I they show up every day, and so yeah, yes, I did.
So how are you showing up different?
um a lot more joy, and just an even bigger servant's heart, and not getting offended, uh catching myself, when I get in that spirit of comparison where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be what they are. And I'm, just that the racket is what we call it in the story. And um, showing up, offering authentically me, I guess.
And how is your relationship? Two important relationships as we heal.
Yeah.
Um, your relationship with yourself
Hmm.
and your relationship with whatever you consider your God or universe or higher spirit. So, how have those two changed noticeably for you?
Well, I was able to print her and hold her up and have her and look at her now and not feel guilt and shame. And I talk to her every single day. And I look at that face, and I'm just like, just the sweetest, just the sweetest little girl. And um, that's short answer. But and then as far as like as God and universe and my it's indescribable. It's just indescribable. I've never felt love before. Like truly, truly, truly felt love before. And I feel so incredibly loved and so close to God and totally forgiven and perfectly made. And yeah, it's incredible.
That's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that it's better, and I say this to my clients because we're trying to repair, right? And
Mhm.
I've had two neck fusion surgeries. I can't see where the scar is here, but they went both through the same spot. So I have one scar for two fusions in my neck.
Oh, wow.
And so I used to, when it was still a big, scab, I used to use it as an example. When our traumas are still scabs of our life,
Mhm.
we pick at them and they bleed and they hurt, or if we move them or touch them, they hurt, or if they, are any sensitive, they're very sensitive to
Mhm.
everything. But once they become scars, now we can touch them, we can rub them, we can talk about them, we can feel them,
Mhm.
but they don't hurt us in the same fashion. So
Mhm.
we have to get those traumas to go from scabs to scars so that they're just a fabric of your life and not the wounds of your life.
Yeah.
And when you start to do that, you are able to talk about it without that pain, without that
Oh, yeah.
shame. You're you have a visible record of your healing progress because you cry less about it. You become
Mhm.
less the victim and more the victor of your story.
Oh, 100%. I
So
feel
when Go ahead,
well, I can share a very quick story with you. And
please.
this is in 2009. This is when I got saved. And I got radically saved. Myself and my ex-husband and our kids did. We all got saved together. And God spoke to me and said, I want you to call your stepmother. And that was where the source of my most trauma happened. And I was like, oh, you're crazy. Are you crazy? And I thought, no way. And I mean, why would that even come into my mind? I want you to call your stepmother. And I had said all my life over my dead body, I hadn't talked to her in 26 years. In 26 years, I had not talked to her. And I ended up getting her phone number from my stepsister. And I called her and she answered the phone and she said, Kelli. And I said, yes. And she said, I've been praying for you for 13 years that you would call me so I could ask for your forgiveness. And I was like, what? I didn't even know why I was going to call her, didn't know what we were going to talk about. And I remember the physical trauma response. I was shaking. I mean, I was just sick to my stomach. It was crazy. So much fear. And we talked for like 4 hours. We talked about all this stuff. We talked about things that had happened, talked about the relationship with her and my dad. She had been divorced from my dad. And I asked her at the end, I said, can I just ask you, why did you do the things that you did to me? I was a little girl. I was just a little girl. She said, Kelli, you need to know it wasn't your fault. And I was like, right then, it completely was gone, totally gone. And I felt so much love for her because when I realized that it wasn't me and it was maybe whatever she's going through, and she was telling me all the stuff that she had dealt with my dad, and I didn't know what I didn't know, and she was just doing what she was doing, and so anyway, that was my first miracle of forgiveness, and I knew it was possible to heal. It's been 15 years, but
Yeah, well, it's a journey, not a destination.
yeah,
um, but
yeah,
you're at the pace where you need to be because now in
yeah.
this phase of your life, you still got you're not even at the halfway point. You still got a ton
Yes,
of
I
life.
am. I'm
No, you're
55. Yes, I am.
I'm almost 60. I am not at my halfway point yet.
Well, I'm right behind you.
But you have the opportunity now to live the next 40 plus years in a more joy-filled state, helping others who are going through what you went through,
Yes.
healing others along the way, and actually not just being a realtor who goes out and sells homes and is that part, but to actually have an impact on the people around you. And your
Yes.
story, the more you tell it, the more stages you get on, the more things that you do in those fashions, you're going to impact people you'll never even meet. You're going to have the ripple in the water, and we toss the pebble in, we see the ripples, but as it transits, by the time it reaches the next shore, it can be a tsunami. It has
Yeah.
that much power and that much energy through it.
Yeah.
And the more you tell your story from this healed, joy filled
Mhm.
position, the
Mhm.
more impact you'll have. Because when we share our stories and we're still the victim of it, people are like,
Right.
oh, poor you,
Yeah.
sorry. But when we share it from the victory
Yep.
standpoint, people go, oh my gosh, how did you do it? And how can I do it too?
Right.
Because there are many occasions where I'm like, if that person can do it, I certainly
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're at the starting point of
I hope so.
your impact and transformation.
Yeah.
And it starts with you, and you've done that. And
Yeah.
now it's going to transcend into people you'll never even meet.
What on May 16th, I get an opportunity to speak about real estate and the correlation of mental health because it is a thing. We are like sixth on the suicide list. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's so, and people were like, "What? I never even thought about that. I never even, so I'm hoping to put something together that maybe that is a platform that I can use along with the tools that I've been given and continue to be given. I'm going back to Save a Warrior that day. I'm flying out 2 hours later to back to Ohio to go to the fast track intensive, and I'm just absolutely determined. I'm never gonna, fully arrive, right? I know I
Yeah.
posted that I have arrived, but I've arrived that I can now be fully present in where I'm at, um, and let that other baggage go. So
Well, I think that's you know, it's a great start to where your next phase of your story is going to take you, because we can't do it when we're still in the midst of our trauma. But once
right.
we're able to overcome the trauma, now we have the tools that can help others. And having been in real estate for 9 years or 7 years, felt like nine. um,
Yeah.
um, 1 year I actually had to clock how many hours I
Mhm.
actually worked, and it was 2,700 clocked hours. And there were plenty of hours that I didn't clock, but the regular 9 to 5 job is 2,080 hours. So
Oh,
that's 700 more hours in a
wow.
year, that was dedicated towards real estate. And last year, when my son had to go have eye surgery in Indianapolis, I told my wife that I was going to be there. And
Mhm.
she actually cried because I was choosing family over business for the first
Mm.
time. And I said, that will never happen again. So I can understand why we're sixth on the list for suicide. You
Yeah.
know, it's a thankless job until, you
Mhm.
know, the system is closed. But the
Yeah.
process in between there, not a lot of gratitude is given to us.
No.
And we do leave our families and our friends and events and everything in the name of our client.
Mm.
So I can understand, but your story will have an impact on those people, because to be successful in real estate, you have to have that mindset and that
Mhm.
balance, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how is Save a Warrior going to serve you moving forward, other than keeping you accountable and on track,
Mhm.
to your continued healing? What aspect of it is going to be next for you to help others through it?
Well, I'm very, very connected to everyone there that are a part of it. And so, and you can reach out to them anytime. We're in Facebook groups, private Facebook groups, and it's just they touch your phone constantly. My shepherd is in Ohio, and she's accessible all the time. But my hope is that I can just become a voice. I'm flying down to Arizona next week for Courageous Survival to attend a conference at GCU, Grand Canyon University, to learn more about the veteran GI Bill, but the additional education that Grand Canyon University offers veterans. And so I just feel like all the resources and the information that I'm gathering is, as I get the opportunities to get in front of people, I can share. I want to be a resource to people. And I'm telling you, the people that have come to me out of the woodworks that are like, I've been suffering with suicidal ideations, and I mean, it has been crazy since I've been back. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't know if I can handle this just
Yeah.
yet. I just got out of it myself,
Yeah.
I
We,
mean, yeah, I was like, woo. And I mean, there was an incident that happened the night before I went to Save a Warrior that entailed a suicide situation. But I know that God's not going to put anything in my path that I can't handle. And he's just preparing me. So I just want to be a voice. And if I can tell the world about Save a Warrior, I will. I absolutely will. Yeah.
well, I used to work at GCU, so I'm very familiar with.
Oh, okay.
So what I do know, and you are starting to understand this. I've heard this said before, so I can't attribute it to the right person. But if God puts a Goliath in front of you, because He sees a David in you,
Oh, I love that.
and you are going to be put in situations where, again, you're like, really, me, what? But there's something in there that is meant for you to be the light for God, because that's where the glory goes once it's done anyway.
Mm-hmm.
um, so that little fear and that little doubt, momentary normalcy, but
Yeah.
you're in that position because you're meant to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Real
But
estate, I say real estate's my profession, but speaking and spreading the hope and the word and encouragement and possibilities, that's my passion. So
and the more you step into that with the faith, the more opportunities to do that will arise,
yeah.
because that's where your impact is. One to one is fine, but when you're on the stage or in the event or on the
Mhm.
platform, whether it be a podcast or whatever, now you have the impact of one to many, and that's where you really get to have that solid impact.
Mhm.
Are there other veterans organizations that you work with, since you're a vet yourself?
Yeah, there's I was just introduced to a fabulous podcast called Mill to Vets. And
Mhm.
that is, it's MIL, the number two VETS. And that is uh their support system is for military, transitioning from military back into civilian, that as becoming a veteran. And that's huge for me as well, because I don't know if we talked about it the last time, but I didn't have medical VA benefits for 25 years.
Oh
I,
wow.
I had zero. And got very sick in 2017, was sitting in front of a client, and he said, have you been to the local CBOC? And I said, no. And he said, he grabbed me by the hand, put me in the car, took me up there, slammed his hand down on the counter and said, this woman served our country and she's never had medical benefits. You sign her up right now. I owe him my life. And that's when I went on this journey now of just looking into these other organizations. And there's at the Boise Vet Center, Captain Dan Ashley. Everyone knows him. He's incredible. He travels the country and goes for vets that don't want to go to the VA. And he's got this big truck trailer, and everything's confidential and private, and they have all the resources to help vets that are struggling. And I just would go with him and talk to people and vets that were 75 years old that had never had medical benefits.
Wow.
Never. And this one gentleman walked up to our table and he says, I have cancer. And we're like, you have no medical? And he's like, no. So
Wow.
there's Idaho Veterans Chamber of Commerce. There's joining forces. There's, oh my gosh, veteran, what is it? Veteran Entrepreneur Alliance, I think it is, VEA. There's just a ton of them. And
Well,
I
I'm
love,
glad. Yeah, and I'm glad that you're out there advocating for the others, who don't have the benefits. It's really one of my major pet peeves of how our veterans are treated after they've served, our
yeah.
country. So I appreciate anyone like you who steps up and helps get these
Mhm.
people the help that they deserve. So, two questions as we kind of wrap up here. What is something in 20, because we're halfway through 2020. So what is something coming up in the end of 2024 into 2025 that really is your passion that you're looking forward to on your horizon for yourself?
It would be to really just define my message and to gain the exposure that I have opportunities to get in front of more people that I can share. That's really, really what I want. And I'm not one to ask for help. I don't ask for help. So I'll be like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
That's the
When,
next healing part. You have to be able to ask for help.
yes.
But what you'll find is in this new circle, it'll be easier because you know that they will help.
Yeah.
And they won't help just because they feel obligated. They'll help
Mhm.
because it's in their servant heart to help.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you like I tell my wife because she's that same I'll do it myself type of person. When you do that, yes, you're totally capable of whatever it is you're not asking help from. But what you're also doing is robbing others to help serve you and give from their heart that also fill their cup.
Yes.
So,
Yes, because who am I to think that I'm the only one that's the best server in the whole world?
right.
You
Yeah.
know, there's people that could definitely do it better than I can. So
Well, you show a lot of growth when you start asking for help.
yeah.
But you show even more growth when you ask for the help without the expectation of whether they say yes or not.
Hmm. I
So,
just read a phenomenal book called Say It Like It Matters,
mm.
and it's all about public speaking. And the point is it's not about me. You know, and I'm all, nervous and what do I
Mhm.
say? And what do I this? And it's like, get over yourself. It's not about you. And
Yeah.
my passion is I'm so passionate about wanting to help other people that I've got to just put myself aside and be like, get up there and do it. And that's what gives me the courage to get up and do it, is
Yeah.
that if I could just help one, just
Well,
one.
I'm gonna look up that book because as a public speaker, I'm looking for all those tips. But you're right. My the people I surround myself with, they said the same thing. If you're nervous and worried because it's about you and
Mhm.
your story's about you, then
Yeah,
yes, you're going to be nervous and worried. But if you're nervous and worried because you want to impact them, then you're going to give a stronger speech because
yes,
now it's about the impact, not about you, the person, and the anxiety or the little twinge of nervousness is normal, but what's behind it is what brings the value to your actual
right.
speech.
The intention. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
intention. So
Yes.
you start being mindful of the impact you're going to have, and you'll still have that nervousness, but it'll be a different feeling than the
Right.
nervousness about, did I say the right things? Did I forget something? What I find about speaking is that the audience doesn't know what I was going to speak on anyway. So if I miss a point or don't say something, they have
Yeah.
no idea that it was supposed to be there, right?
It's not like, oh, they caught me.
Yeah. Oh, darn it. They saw my notes.
Yeah.
You missed bullet point six.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you're definitely gonna go on to impact a lot of people. I see this brightness and this beauty and this glow that is just exuding from you now, and it's an entirely different Kelly than came on a year ago. So yeah,
Thank you.
kudos. And so I'll ask you the same question that I asked you last time as we wrapped it up. What does a warrior spirit now mean to Kelli?
Her. Yeah. Um, gosh, a warrior spirit. Just never give up, and don't give up hope, and humble yourself. And you can still be a warrior and be humble. You can still be a warrior and be quiet. You can still be weak and be a warrior. I don't know if weak's the right word, but um
Vulnerable.
vulnerable is better. Yeah, a warrior spirit. um you don't have to be in control. You don't. Just show up, shut up, and listen.
I love it. So, what is one last parting word of wisdom that you'd share with the people who are listening today?
Oh my gosh, wisdom. I love that, because that's what Brad Gallup said. He said it's not knowledge, it's wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
There's hope in tomorrow. And then, you get it followed by, well, you don't know if you have tomorrow. Well, I'm just going to believe that I do. And there's
But if
hope.
you don't have tomorrow, you don't have to worry. So,
Yeah. And I'm going to praise him through the storms. I'm going to praise him through the storms, because, yeah, Brad said that, he says people differentiate the water with the waves. And he said, but the wave is the water. Just ride the wave. The wave is the water. And it was a great perspective for me. So,
well, I
yeah.
love it, and I'm thankful that you're still in my tribe and
Yeah, me too.
thriving, doing great
Yeah.
things, and I look forward to what's to come for you. And maybe down the road we'll come back and do part three when you're on multiple stages, impacting thousands of people.
That'd be great. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for all that you do. It really means a lot to me. And you're the first person that ever had me on the podcast, and now my second. So,
Well, there's more to come because now you're stepping into your true self. So
yes.
the journey will be much easier. You got a better surfboard now. You can ride
Yeah,
the
right.
waves.
Even though I don't like the water, but it's fine.
Well, I appreciate you, and you have a blessed rest of your day. And thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.